The woman smokes a cigarette in her car on her way to the DVD store. She strolls in, returns her previous picks, heads straight for the aisle and picks new ones in one fluid motion. She heads up to the counter when suddenly the man at the counter asks if he can make a suggestion, critiquing her choice of porno. He warns her how bad the movie actually is, having watched it himself, trying to get her to choose something that doesn't involve underage girls getting railed by greasy fat guys and bad shots of German scenery. The woman is more alarmed than anything that he's talking to her, much less that he has the audacity to strike up such a personal conversation and be so invasive about her choices. She's so uncomfortable, she ends up not taking the movie at all and speeding out of the store even faster than usual. His friends all give him a look of disapproval. Derek explains you can't casually chat with the porn customers the same way you do the people renting French New Wave films, and Simon agrees it was an incredibly odd exchange. Eric, on the other hand, jokes he was glad for the interaction. While his friends debate a whole lot of nothing, he casually sits at the register, covertly clicking a few buttons in the system and looking up the woman's personal contact information, which he obviously knows is against company policy. He sneaks to scribble her address down on the palm of his hand, and struggles to contain his excitement as he leaves work, heading to her apartment. He parks his car outside her building and tries to enter, but there's a locked gate that requires a code. Unable to get in that way, he loiters around the building till a tenant arrives with their car, opens the parking gate, and uses the opportunity to infiltrate. Once inside, he wanders the building searching for the correct apartment. He finds her in 201 and peeks through her window, catching a glimpse of her poorly produced porn. The man wakes the next morning in the back seat of his car. After freshening up, he heads straight back to her building. This time, to break in, he rings a random apartment pretending to be a delivery man. An old lady answers and buzzes him in. He peeps at her through her window again, briefly panicking as he finds her awake and about to leave her apartment. She exits the apartment, passing him straight as she heads for the elevator. When she returns and he's still standing there, she suddenly recognizes him from the video store and is, rightfully alarmed. She starts backing away, her body language giving clear signs of entering fight or flight mode, and he tries calming her as if she were a stray animal. She's about to go back down the elevator again when he stops her exit, only scaring her more when he aggressively asks her out for coffee. She does what any sane woman would do, squeeze past him and run for dear life. Two pretty girls offer him with their choice of movies to ring up, their behavior suspiciously coquettish. However, he's in such a daze over the girl he's stalking. He doesn't even seem to register them, serving them with not even a fraction of the chipper customer service he gave her. The man freshens up, preparing for round two. He appears outside her apartment, and she's about to panic as she sees him again, but he quickly stops her, apologizing for spooking her yesterday, and lying that he had a friend in the building, to normalize his presence there. He asks her out again, and she's about to shut the door on him when he stops her, recanting the offer but insisting he wants to give her a gift. He gives her a DVD from the store, promising he's got a natural gift for picking out films for people. She accepts, snatching the DVD and promising to return it with the others before closing the door on him. He peeks at her one last time as he leaves, seeing her about to put on the DVD. As he leaves her building, he spots a package with the gate code written on it, taking note for later use. He strolls into her building, easily having required the gate code, and knocks on her door again. She's noticeably pissed at this point, keeping her responses very curt. He tries asking how the movie was, but she doesn't allow it. He lies that his great-aunt had to go to the hospital in order to garner sympathy. Sob story in place, he tries asking her out to breakfast again and she sharply declines. She gives her condolences for his aunt before retreating into her apartment. While he's at work, Simon spots her coming, and he spins around, excited to see her. The woman walks in, places the DVDs on the counter and walks out, not even bothering to greet anyone or get replacements, and he's left bewildered. Outside her apartment that night, he spreads his eyes open in order to fake tears better before ringing her door. She already knows who it is, screaming for him to go away, and he desperately throws himself at the door, dramatically faking sobbing and claiming his made-up aunt passed, begging her for help. She opens the door, and he's briefly relieved, till he sees she's armed with a knife in case he tries anything. He strolls into her apartment, the melodrama of his act fading as he invites himself to open up her windows. She orders him to talk, spit out whatever he came here for, but he diverts, complimenting her apartment instead. Ever the improvisational liar, he invents a story about his aunt giving him an idiom about knowledge versus wisdom. But unluckily for him, the woman is smarter than she looks and knows the quote is by Emerson. The woman admits she knew his aunt, that the woman would always say hello to her when they bumped into each other at the mailbox downstairs. Not knowing how to answer that, he changes the subject again, reassuring her it's okay to watch erotica. He gets closer, softly explaining that there's no real sex in the videos she rents, no penetration. But she snaps, not wanting to talk about it. Next thing you know, they're sitting on the floor, chatting about random things as though they were friends. She's about to kick him out so she can go to bed when he asks to spend the night on her couch. He wakes the next morning having had one of the best nights of sleep in a while. She's still out cold, and he takes the time while getting dressed to snoop around her apartment a little. He He tries sneaking into her bedroom, but she's locked the door, foiling his plans. He steps outside on the balcony. He runs into work, Derek questioning why he's late. He apologizes to Eric, who thought he'd perished, since he's never been late before. As he clocks in, Eric informs him his mamush, the Polish word for mother, called for him. He curses, remembering it's Wednesday. Eric reports she had an emotional outburst when he didn't pick up this morning, screaming at him in Polish, and she's been calling every 10 minutes for the last 2 hours. As if on cue, the phone rings and Eric hands it to him, not even needing to check the caller ID. The woman wakes to find a string tied around her ankle. Bewildered, she follows the trail out her sliding doors, onto the wraparound balcony and all the way around to the living room of her apartment, where it leads her to a neatly folded pile of blankets and a thank you note. As the boys have dinner together, Simon complains about his relationship problems, but ends up getting roasted by Eric and the gang, who argue his girlfriend is just sexually unsatisfied because Simon doesn't know what the clitoris is. The man tries visiting the woman's apartment again, ringing her doorbell, but she pretends not to be home as she scrolls through childhood photos on her laptop. He leaves the DVD he brought her outside her door, which she collects after his departure. She puts blankets over her windows so that he can't peep through the spaces. Washing her hands, she follows her usual routine, pulling out the DVD and perching on the couch with her hand in her pants. The next step in his plan to get closer to her is giving her a gift, something more precious than porn, though he does check that she enjoyed the tape he left for her before. He realizes, after recommending a few, that the bad quality of the films is something she needs, part of her process. He gifts her with a cross as a gift of protection, even though she's not Catholic. She's about to put it on when he stops her, insisting he needs to wash her hair first. She hates washing as much as a cat hates water, but he's gentle, patient, and very careful. As he dries her hair like a child, she wonders if Polish people truly wash each other, having never heard of that before. He's curious as to how many Polish people she knows, and she admits, none. All clean, he clasps the necklace around her, but pushes his luck with the intimate gestures. In the awkward silence, he offers they should watch one of her movies together, but she doesn't even consider it. He accepts her decision, though it seems he expected more kindness tonight after forcing a gift on her. The man is woken by a knock on his window from a gentleman working at the store whose parking lot he's sleeping in. First, he lies that his wife kicked him out and it's a one-night thing. But the man already knows he's been here for the past 6 nights. They saw him on the security cameras. He tries sticking to the lie, claiming it's been a while, but he's about to get back into his made-up wife's good graces, and the gentleman, realizing what kind of character he is, makes it clear to him his boss wanted to call the police, but he asked them not to. He wanted to give the man a fair warning first, and to drive the severity of the situation home, the man informs him that he's the assistant manager. Realization dawns on the man's face, and he starts his car post-haste. Simon laments to the boys at work that his ex-girlfriend doesn't even want to see him, when he suddenly notices the weird girl stopped coming in. Eric remarks that it's been a week, and Derek chimes upon his arrival that she stopped coming shortly after the interaction with the Polish lover boy, theorizing she's hiding in a garbage bin somewhere. The crew look at Derek with a mix of irritation and confusion. The man brings up the fact that it's his day off, making the crew quickly realize what's going on. Derek has no social life or friends outside of work, hence showing up to work on his day off. The couple meet to watch one of the woman's pornos together. She makes him sit far away from her, and orders him not to speak to her. As the movie starts, she grumbles that the activity feels moot, since she can't masturbate while he's here. He sympathizes with her lack of enjoyment, agreeing it's less fun if you aren't getting off. She snaps at him for talking after she ordered him not to, specifying that though she can speak to him, the other way isn't allowed. He zips his lips, and after a moment, she adds another rule stating if he gets a boner, he's out. He nods his agreement to the unreasonable demand, but rearranges things in his pants when she looks away. They get more comfortable with each other with time. He chats with her on the work phone about which movies she wants, and then goes over to her place to watch it with her. While watching a particularly bad one, he tries making conversation out of boredom, asking her how big she thinks the male porn star is. He's flattered and excited to think she's been checking out his bulge, but she insists she doesn't care. His pride insulted, he proposes a wager: if he's bigger than the porn star, he gets to sleep in her bed tonight. She recoils even at the suggestion, but he promises he won't touch her and that he just wants to be warm tonight, wondering what she wants if she wins. She demands as her prize is complete in total silence when he comes over. He says nothing, just cooks the food and watches the movie. He agrees, and their game is on. They estimate the porn star is about 8 or 8.5 inches. He wonders how she wants to measure him, and she recoils at the idea, refusing to touch him. Every remotely sexual thing about the situation revolts her. The slang words he uses to refer to his sexual organs, the suggestion of it being erect, having to look at it to see the measurement. She shrinks into the corner, just barely peeping to see the results. She promises to call the police on him if he her while they're in bed together, but he's too damn exasperated for her crap right now, reminding her that he's been here every single day for weeks. If he'd wanted to assault her, he could have done so by now. he's just cold and tired. Quietly, he asks if he can, at the very least, put his back against hers, and she muses in agreement. He tells her in Poland, the position is called pleki do pleki, which means back to back, and his grandmother used to make them sleep in pairs like this when they were children, as a method of keeping warm during the winter. The woman finds his story quaint, wondering if his great aunt was Polish too, and he stutters a bit as he's reminded of the lie that got him here. When he wakes, she's showering already, and he takes the moment alone to pleasure himself before getting dressed. Coming out of the shower, she announces she started her period. He asks her to go out today, but she declines, explaining that on the first day of their period, girls are sick. He's brought some honey for her. The intimacy of the moment and her momentary vulnerability lead him into trying to kiss her, but he's swiftly denied. He leans over the table, nibbling breakfast, when she comes up behind him, grabbing his hair and ramming into him, pretending she's a porn star. At work, he's struggling to hide his relationship, since he has to talk to her on the work line. One day, Simon almost catches him as he overhears part of his conversation. He plays it off as though it's just a discussion with a client. Eric pulls him aside after work, offering him a cigarette as he always does, even though he doesn't smoke, which he honestly finds a tad annoying. Eric mentions he swung by his apartment yesterday and found only a pile of rubble. The man stutters, and Eric, being his longtime friend, can easily see through his lies, asking if he's gone back to living in his car again. He vehemently denies it, claiming he has a place to stay, but when Eric asks to see it, threatening to drag him there, he recoils. Eric confronts him on what's going on, hinting that the man used to be an addict. He's frustrated, begging Eric to trust him, as he assures him he has a nice place to go home to, the place being the woman's apartment, though he can't tell Eric that, because of the nefarious methods he used to get there. Eric feels as though the man's making him look like a fool. Eric is always there for him, always trusts him and opens up to him as a friend, and he's insulted that the man won't do the same, after all he's done for him. He washes his hands of him then and there, proclaiming he gives up and can't care anymore. That night, as he sets up the DVD, the woman admits she's getting sick of his presence. She hasn't in forever. The movie he puts on is one Eric lent him forever ago, but when it starts, it turns out it's just extreme close-ups. She asks him to fast forward, check if there's anything else on there, but what comes on the screen downright traumatizes her, and even he agrees without argument to turn it off. He gives the DVD to Simon at work the next day, who he's sure will appreciate it. Simon wonders what's going on with him and Eric. He shrugs, stating Eric isn't talking to him, but Simon is obviously already aware of that, hence the inquiry. Derek and Simon slowly make up as Derek offers to go see a film with Simon that he'd originally planned to see with his ex-girlfriend, suggesting it would be more comforting if he had company. Simon accepts, heading out with Derek to check on the showing times when Eric opts to join them, not wanting to be left alone with the man. He calls the woman, leaving a message on her machine inviting her to the movie. She watches the boys exit the theater that night, hiding behind a car, and can see him looking around for her. He gets to her place that night, waking her up. He demands to know why she didn't answer when he called multiple times. She sighs, complaining about his whining and neediness. He expresses how much he wants her to meet Eric and the gang, suggesting he wants to meet her father too, and that statement triggers her. She curses him, wondering who he thinks he is, trying to make it clear she doesn't even care about him. Appalled, he weakly answers he's her boyfriend, and she wonders what kind of messed up relationship this is, pointing out that not only do they not have sex, but she doesn't even like him. He has the audacity to ignore everything she says, asking her if she's ever been a victim of a question she obviously doesn't appreciate. She thinks he should find a normal girl he can do those things with, rather than disrupting her life. He argues that she has no life outside of him, begging her to come out yet again. Simon lends Derek the same DVD the man gave him, and the two chat about how he and Eric are doing. Derek reveals Eric won't talk about what's going on between them. Simon suggests that these things happen between friends, but Derek claims this is unprecedented behavior. The woman viciously criticizes the man over lunch, calling him pathetic, childish, and a poor excuse for a man. He doesn't take it lying down, firing back that she's even more pathetic for doing nothing but watching underage, exploited girls rubbing against each other, and jerking off day in and day out. She rolls her eyes, calling him a scrounger, though he argues he has a job. He believes she doesn't have a reason to not be with him, and this outburst is coming from her searching for one. He tries insisting it's not about her money, but she doesn't believe that's true. She tries kicking him out, but he won't move, insisting that not only is he staying and sleeping in her bed tonight, but he's going to touch her, and they're going to try to have sex. Horrified, she stomps off to her room to try calling the police, but he follows her, forcing the phone from her. She tries escaping, but he doesn't let her, climbing on top of her. She screams, battering at him till he gets off, but he refuses to leave, grabbing his book as he sits next to her. She orders him to hand her her own book, and despite how fuming he is, he obeys. One of their regulars, named Charlie, suddenly asks the boys if they're in love. Charlie's getting up there in age, and in a wistful tone, advises the boys to fall in love, as there's no use wasting away alone in this life. Gently, the man drags the woman out of her apartment for a normal date. At the ice rink, he suggests that if she watches films that are more psychologically sexual, then she might have thoughts about doing it herself, but she doesn't even let him finish, insisting she's frigid. The woman explains if she wanted to have sex, she'd find someone sexier, and that every inch of him disgusts her, especially the thought of his sexual organs. In fact, she finds all repulsive in look and smell, believing all men should be ashamed for even owning such a sick body part. It's a lot to process for him, but he notes she used a slang word for his member instead of the scientific term, and counts this as a sign of her progress. She suddenly slams him up against a fence as they walk home. Her voice low, she asks if he likes this, and if this was what he wanted. Meekly, he admits he'll take what he can get, whatever she'll give him. Holding his chin down, she kisses him, gently at first and gradually deeper. She visibly sinks into the kiss, but pushes him back down the second he moves. They carry this chemistry all the way home, where they make out on her bed. But again, he's positioned so he can't touch her, keeping his arms pinned straight above his head. She kisses him, making a little noise as she rubs against him when suddenly she stops. She leaps off him with a curse, snapping she hates him, and curling into a ball like a hurt child. He's immediately apologetic, but her trust is already broken. He promised her he wouldn't, and now she feels as though it can happen at any time. It's no longer safe for her to have him in her bed. She kicks him out of her room, calling him a pervert. She goes to him in the living room some time after, wearing a skirt, something that's an obvious signal to him, since she never wears skirts. He seems to understand, getting on his knees, but always making sure to observe her face as he moves. He starts kissing her thighs, and she makes a little noise, but soon after, she stops him as he gets more ambitious. He starts commending her when she announces she wants him to leave, breaking up with him. He's confused, thinking they'd made progress, but she claims she's never seeing him again. She orders him to leave or she'll scream, and no matter what he says or how he begs, she just keeps repeating that word over and over. It's only when she starts breaking down into hysterical crying that he finally obeys, bolting out the apartment and leaving her sobbing. He heads to Eric's house, and his friend welcomes him with open arms. He's depressed after losing her, unable to eat, focus, or be happy about anything. She's back to laying in bed alone. He scowls at an overly affectionate couple he serves at work. While collecting mail, the old lady, who she thought was the great aunt he was referring to, greets her as she passes by. The woman only takes seconds after, suddenly realizing he lied. In their time apart, they each contemplate their twisted situationship. The woman gets a job at a cafe during the day. She scrolls through her childhood photos again at night, contemplating the woman she was, and the woman she is, versus the woman she wants to be. She suits up with appropriate armor, steeling herself in the mirror for what she's about to do. She's the prettiest, cleanest, and most feminine she's been in a while, but terribly anxious. She looks up at the massive office building before heading in, going straight upstairs and waltzing into a fancy office. A man walks in, kissing her fondly on the forehead and calling her pet names, and her mannerisms are completely different with him than with the man. She's soft-spoken, stutters nervously, and is overly polite. She apologizes for bothering him, but she wanted to stop by to tell him she has a job now, which he finds cute in a clearly patronizing way. He wonders what her job is, trying to guess. He doesn't think she could work in a restaurant, she'd be a terrible waitress, and tells her she needs to start working out if she's going to be a He starts threatening her with the prospect of paying him back for everything if she suddenly wants to become financially independent at 24, estimating she owes him about $3 million. She returns the keys to the car he gave her, nervously stuttering all the while. He proposes she can rough it with the job for a while if she wants, but she must keep her accounts open. She bravely tells her father she doesn't want his money anymore, claiming she doesn't need it. She's about to leave when he snaps at her to sit. He bombards her with a lecture about how she's not a real adult, how stupid she's being, and offers to arrange for a new apartment. She stops him, claiming she's found somewhere already, but refuses to tell him where it is, threatening to call the police if he tries to find her. She breaks into sobs, the true fear she has of him leaking out, but she powers through. She asserts she can meet with Bob and sign whatever he needs her to sign as she forces herself to her feet. She makes sure to inform him she doesn't love him as she runs out of the building, trying hard to get far away as fast as possible. She wanders through the city, a novel sense of freedom kicking in. She walks all the way to the DVD shop, peering inside. Eric spots her all dressed up, and seems to understand exactly what she's come for. She doesn't see the man inside, and is about to leave when she spots him coming. He's shocked by how beautiful she is. They walk up to each other, and she whispers something in his ear that makes them both start crying. He nods in affirmation and they smile through their tears, hugging each other on the street.